Let's talk about the app universe after the Big Bang. And of course, when we talk about the Big Bang, we're talking about the beginning, so let's go all the way back. In the beginning, like 5 years ago, apps were really exciting. Like in 2008, when the App Store was new, apps were going to change the world, and apps were the magic word, man. You add an app to anything, and it became magical. It was like .com, you know, it just made everything great. And that's not the same thing anymore, and that's what this talk is about. And I'm going to give you an example, and since you brought up the Obama app, I'm going to act like it wasn't a sheer coincidence that that's the next slide to talk about that a little bit. Obama 08 really knocked people's socks off. It really wowed people. I mean, like, you know, Newsweek did this massive, massive project after the election where they had embedded reporters all over the election with total access under the promise that they'd not say anything until the election was over so they could be 100% honest. And for all the stuff that they had to talk about, Sarah Palin and all that crazy nonsense, they dedicated an entire paragraph to this app and how it was just one example of how the Obama campaign made Obama seem young and hip, like he got it, and McCain seemed stodgy and old. All that from one app. And yet 4 years later, when we get to the Obama 12 app, this app, I never used the app because I didn't care either, but it must have been better. It must have been so much better. It had the entire 08 thing to build on. It had 4 years of doing this stuff to build on. It had the backing of the President of the United States, who has some power. And yet, when you do a Google search for Obama 12 app, most of the hits are for the Obama 8 app. That's how much our caring about this stuff has shifted in just this short time. Truly the golden age is over. We are solidly in the silver age. But don't let that depress you. In fact, that shouldn't depress you. That should make you very, very happy. Because we pronounce it the silver age, but we spell it like we spell Microsoft. Because there's money in the silver age. In fact, I dare say that when you look at the statistics, that's where the money is. There's a big bell chart that says the money, and that big lump in the middle, that's the silver age. That's where we are now. That's exciting. Apps right now, apps in 2013 are like websites in 2003. They're not new, but everybody needs one. Before everybody wanted one, now everybody needs one. If you don't have an app, you don't exist. And silver is good. Silver is very good. Who here would be sad to walk home with a little silver in your pocket, huh? Yeah, see? Maybe it's not as exciting as gold or tungsten, but it's exciting. And silver is money, like literally, silver is money. You know the word dollar, which is used all over the world to connote money? It actually comes from the word thaler, from Joachim Thaler, as in something from Joachim Stahl, the St. Joachim silver mine in Czechoslovakia, or what was once Czechoslovakia, what is now Gotland. I have no idea where it is, I've never been there. It's probably radioactive because that's also where uranium comes from. But the point is this, silver equals money. And yeah, okay, silver's boring. I'll grant you. It doesn't look like the sun fell to earth the way gold does. It doesn't require cutting off your finger if you make a ring out of it like tungsten does. But still, I know. We want to be artists. We dream of art. We don't want the silver, we want the glory. Let's talk about art a little bit. Okay, I said that apps in 2013 are like websites in 2003, but in another way, in a very real way, apps in 2013 are just like apps in 2003. And you might be saying, but this stuff started in 2008. But it didn't. Like, the word app isn't even new. Right? I mean, we like to say, oh, you know, before 2005, those were applications, but really now they're apps now. Oh, not really. That's just a convenient lie we tell ourselves to make a semantic distinction. I mean, the app kit that ships on the Mac to make apps is the old one that we hate using because it's 30 years old when we use UI kit. And UI is not new either. It's just names for stuff. It's all the same. It's the same stuff, okay? Look. You can be an artist now the same way that you could be an artist before any of this stuff existed, before any of this. You could be an artist 400 years ago, and the rules have never changed. If you the smartest. Because art is hard. Look, in Amsterdam, we love this guy, right? His digital exhibit of paintings, people redoing what he did in the latest technology, which looks, by the way, freaking amazing, is right here in this building. We have a whole museum to this guy. This guy was art. And he's like the mascot of Amsterdam, right? We love him, we love his name, we love putting his face in places, we love making stuff look like he made stuff. But he's like a mascot. He's not our favorite artist. He's not the artist we love the most. He's not the artist we have a whole year celebrating. We have a square dedicated to him with a giant statue of him towering over it, like 6 times bigger than the statues of the former queens. And below that statue, a statue of his greatest painting, so that you could walk through his painting. All you had to do in this country to get a bigger statue than the queen was be painted by Rembrandt van Rijn, the patron saint of Amsterdam. The man that this city loves more than any other person. Because this man not only got art, but this man made money. Yeah. This isn't the world's most creative city. This is the world city that lives at the intersection of creativity and commerce. For 400 years we have been here doing this thing. And I made this myself, so the meta lesson here is don't let engineers make your graphics. Creativity and commerce, that's where art comes from. That's where you need to be living. That's where we are now. But you need to pay attention, because being a successful artist, being at that intersection means paying attention not just to the creativity, but also to the commerce. And a lot of that stuff is the stuff that we're not super into, and therefore it's the stuff that we have to pay the most attention to, right? You have to pay attention to things like pricing, right? You think pricing is so simple? You think you can just look at something and use your gut to figure out what the right price is? Yeah, maybe 5 years ago, when nobody cared what the price is. That's not how this stuff works anymore. I asked a friend of mine who's in a very similar, business that I'm in, and I asked him how he figures out what the right price of his app is. And he said, well, for starters, you've asked the wrong question. Because there's no such thing as the right price. And as long as you go thinking that there's such a thing as the right price, you're going to mess up. And he gave me an answer that has become the shortest answer that I have found to answer the question of how you price something. Right? It goes something like this. First you use your gut, but then you go one higher than that because you're underestimated and you need to give yourself some room. And then when you get a good review or you start to get picked up, then you lower it by one tier to that gut. And then if you actually get featured and things really start to go crazy and they're calling you the next Angry Birds, or let's not be 3 years ago, they're calling you the next Candy Crush, that's when you lower it by one more tier. That's when you bring it down as low as you can bring it. And eventually you want to make it free right about the time when you have something else that you can use it to promote. That is the simplest, shortest answer for how to price your app. Pretty damn complicated, isn't it? And that's not even the real reason, that's just phenomenology. I mean, if you really want to get into it, you have to go to jury.me and read his 5-part series on app pricing. And let me reiterate this. I know 5 parts is a lot of parts, but let me tell you how utterly absolute this is in our industry right now. This guy, Michael Jurowitz, had been at Apple since time immemorial. Left Apple, wrote this 5-part blog entry, gave a presentation about it to make sure we all got the point, dropped the mic, and went back to Apple. If ideas are the currency of our age, this is gold, right here. You also have to pay attention, though, to your internal money. You have to pay attention to budgeting. And boy, this is, by the way, this is all the kind of wisdom that is taught not by experience. I'm not bragging. This is the stuff I don't do, and this is why I fail, right? These are hard-won lessons for your benefit, right? Budgeting, I suck at this. This is what I have learned. So imagine the amount of money that you spend in a month. And I'm talking about be honest with yourself. Don't lie. Don't pretend that you can start, eating 40 euros worth of food a month. Like, don't lie. Look at how much money you're actually spending for your rent, for your mortgage, for your kids, for your food, for your travel, everything. Every last euro cent that you are spending for a month. Round it up and multiply it by 12. That's what we talk about when we talk about a 12-month burn. And then if you cut that into 4, so that you have quarters, you get yourself a 3-month burn. Those are our 2 thresholds. What are those the thresholds for? 3 months burn is the point at which you can quit your job. It's the point at which you can start doing this stuff on your own. It's the point at which you have any freedom at all. It's the time it takes to turn your head in business. This stuff happens slow. 3 months in the other direction is when you need to actually go get a job. When you have less than 3 months, it's time to give up and go get a job. And you might say, but I have 3 months, I can keep going. No, you can't. It'll take you at least 3 months to get a job and get paid and get your rent paid. If you give yourself less than 3 months, you run a real risk of, well, I would say bankruptcy, but we're in the Netherlands, so let's not think about it. And 12 months is the threshold when you can actually start working on your own stuff. When you have more than 12 months of money in the bank, and I know it's a lot, and I bet nobody here has that, that's when you can start working on your own stuff. And when you get less than that, that's when your consulting flag has to go on, right? And this is the thing, when you have between 3 and 12 months burn, that's not the fun part, that's the suck, right? This is the consulting part. This is the part where you do anything, anywhere, for any amount of money, so you can get back up to 12 months, so you can start working on your own stuff again. If you follow this disciplined plan, you have the best possible chance of success without screwing up everything in your life. And if you don't follow this plan, then you're going to end up like me, for better or for worse. I'm trying to follow this plan, I really am, because I need to stop burning people. Okay, here's what it comes down to. We need to hustle, right? We don't like talking about ourselves, we don't like talking about our business, we get tired of talking about it, too bad. You know what, these are business cards. Do you have some? You better. When you meet somebody, you should hand them out to that person. You should be able to tell anybody, no matter who they are, no matter what they have to do with you, in 60 seconds or less, what you're all about and why they should care. You need to do that to everybody you meet all the time, always. You need to always be on, always be selling. Are you wearing a shirt with your product on it or someone else's product on it? And if the second one, why? Why are you selling other people's products? Are your own products selling so well? You need to hustle. This isn't a game. It's fun, but it's life at the same time. And marketing, I know, right? Marketing. Yeah, I hate it too. Guess what? Without marketing, we are nothing. Without marketing, we are the people who people would say, those guys were ahead of their time, if anybody even remembered us. If you are a dick to marketeers, you are shooting yourself in the foot. You need to meet the people who do things that you don't like or understand. You need to learn to respect them, and then you need to work with them because they are the parts of you that you don't have, and they are the things that you are lacking to make you successful. Unless you're all rolling in money. If you're rolling in money, then you should be telling me this stuff, and don't listen to me. You want to know how to fail? I'll give you a couple of top ways to fail. Way number 1, just come up with a really terrible idea. This one's easy. Most of you probably have one already. Bad ideas kill dreams. And it's tragic to see people who are committing themselves in the way that they need to be committing themselves in order to do things that are destined to fail because they're designed from the very start to fail. Let me give you an example. Any idea that follows the form, it's like blank but with blank. It's like blank but for blank, right? It's like Facebook for dogs. No. Don't get into the business of making copies of things that exist and then trying to be an artist. Because you're gonna tear yourself up inside because that isn't art. Like, don't get me wrong, there's money to be made by copying other people, and there's a certain satisfaction in sneeringly implementing a version of somebody's app that adds the one feature that you feel like they were too dumb to add. It's just not good business, though. It's not good for you. And like, you know who's Facebook for dogs, by the way? It's called Facebook. It is, right? And if you don't think that Facebook is as good as it could be for dogs, and you want to make your own version of Facebook that adds a feature for dogs, Facebook is just going to steal it, and then they're just going to build it. And if you think you're going to protect yourself with a patent, then you're not paying attention. So just come up with original ideas that are based on something that really drives you crazy. You know, right now I'm obsessing with ways to do better screen capturing in multiple languages because that's a problem that I have that nobody's solved yet. And where there's a problem to be solved, there's a value proposition. And that means that there's money floating around in space for people like us. Also, don't make games. I know, it's funny, right? But I'm serious. Don't make games. Okay, you're still laughing, so let me reiterate this. Don't make games. Don't make games. Don't make games. Getting it yet? You in the front, don't make games. Maybe even blink. Don't make games, seriously. Don't make games. Let's talk about why. Games are the opposite of good software. In every engineering sense of the word, right? Let me explain. Here's what you need to be doing today. You need to solve boring problems, right? You need to solve problems that are just boring as hell that nobody wants to solve. You see, boring problems have a very clear value proposition, right? Let's talk about a boring problem. A boring problem is, I have these two files, and there's something different between them, and I need to figure out what's different between them, maybe because I need to merge them into some ultimate version. That's a big pain in the ass. That's going to take a lot of my time, and it's going to take a lot of my time because I have to do this a lot. I would be willing to give someone money to not have to do that. That's a value proposition. That's money to be made. Games don't have a value proposition. The value proposition of games is wasting your time. And that's not a good value proposition. And to the extent that I have time to be wasted, well, that brings us to the other thing, competition. Boring problems do not have competition. And if they do have competition, the competition is boring, or else the problems wouldn't be boring anymore. If you want to get into the business of serving a boring market with the same passion that you want to use to make a game, then you will own that market. I guarantee it, you will own that market. Whereas games, the last number I heard was something like 260 games a day uploaded to the App Store. Let me reiterate that. There are over 100, maybe over 200 games uploaded every single day to the App Store. Do you know how hard it is to even get someone to notice that you've made a game? Like, I've been marketing this stuff for longer than most of you have even been in this business. And when I went to WWDC, you know how many people I talked to had heard of my game? Like, none. Including journalists, who would then say, wow, I love this game, can you send me a code? And it's like, I sent you a code with the press release. Oh yeah, we don't need those. They can't. There's 230 new ones a day, 260, whatever the number is, it's freaking huge and it goes up all the time. And then there's domain scope, and this is a personal thing, right? This is a your health going forward thing. Boring problems have a very narrow domain scope. There's a problem that needs to be solved. Maybe there's an interesting way to solve it, and at the end of the day, it either solves the problem well or it doesn't solve the problem at all. That's domain scope. Nice and narrow domain scope means you can sit down with an idea of what you want to build, you can come up with some creative solutions to build it, you can ship it, and you can start making money. Games have an enormously wide domain scope. To make even the simplest game, you have to make a universe. You have to build characters that have to have a backstory. You have to have a game mechanic that makes some kind of sense. You start out by wanting to build the singularity, and then you narrow it down into a casual game about chemistry. And that process takes sometimes years. It burns people out. It's extremely expensive. I would say that the most expensive thing in software development is scope narrowing. All the way down to that last feature you have to cut, because no matter how much you love it and no matter how much effort you put into it, it doesn't quite fit and the users don't quite accept it. All the way to the very end, every scar on my body is from domain scope and surgery. But is it art? Is it art to solve the boring problems of the world? And I think that the only proper answer to that question is just get over yourself. And I tell myself this every day. This is why I have friends tell me this. I mean, look at something like checkout, right? Or if you want a more modern example, look at the new Square checkout, right? Which is almost like the next generation of this idea to take something so boring, point of sale, and to turn it into something that is a genuine pleasure to use. The last I heard, this app was selling for $400. I would like you to point me to a game that sells for $400. Or Delicious Library, right? I mean, this was the first real app that I worked on. Hell, some people even say this was the first real app. I mean, this changed the way that we think about browsing media, to the point where looking at three-dimensional displays of your media on a wood shelf is cliche, the way Shakespeare is cliche. And did I mention the diffing situation? Kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope is an incredible piece of software that does one thing and does it incredibly well, and that one thing is something that wastes so much of your time, and that is diffing and merging. It doesn't look like much, but it's beautiful, and when you see what it does, it's beautiful. It works with Xcode, it works by itself out of the box, it works on images, it works on everything. Like, not just software people, but especially software people should be using Kaleidoscope. And two of these examples, Kaleidoscope and Checkout, were created right here in Amsterdam by a company called Sofa, which was then bought by Facebook, and those pieces of software were so good that they went elsewhere in the world to continue their lives even beyond the lives of their founders. If that isn't art, I don't know what is. But to make art with engineering, we have to understand that engineering is hard and will always be hard. And anyone who tells us that engineering is not hard or doesn't have to be hard is trying to sell us something. Let's look quickly at some of the reasons why engineering is hard. Engineering is hard because humans are confusing. Like that stuff I was talking about before the talk, about, how difficult it is to express gratitude and give people credit. The smallest thing, you want a microcosm of this? Try getting married and putting together the seating chart of your wedding and figuring out who doesn't want to sit next to who doesn't like whom, and who's going to get offended because their table number is higher or lower than somebody else. Humans are confusing, and unfortunately, engineering, while we are kind of inhuman in the way that we behave and think, it's all about humans. And anything that doesn't serve humans is at the best a waste of time and at the worst downright evil. And perfection is unachievable. There's this perfection paradox. It would be so easy if all we had to do was demand perfection out of ourselves and the people around us, but you know those people. They're unbearable. And they're hypocrites. Because perfection is unachievable. Engineering isn't about perfection, it's about compromise. And compromise sucks, but that's how things get built. Engineering is hard because the work is unavoidable. I talk about how bad ideas kill dreams. Another side of the bad idea is that it doesn't include you, the person with the idea, doing the bulk of the work. Oh, you want to make paintings and you're not willing to paint? I have no sympathy for you. You want me to paint for you? I will paint for you. I'm going to charge you double what I would charge somebody I actually respected. You know how much I charge to help somebody who's writing code to fix their code? Nothing, or as little as I can get away with. You know how much I charge somebody who doesn't want to write the code to write their code? As much as I can get away with. And you know how much faith I have in that latter project? None. If you think you're going to build something and you're going to pay someone else to do the work, you're not going to be able to pivot. You're either going to run out of money, or you're just not going to be able to do anything, and you're going to be stuck with something that sucks, and you're not going to be able to fix it, and you're not going to be able to express yourself. If you're going to build it, learn how to build it. You don't have to be the best at it, but you have to know what the hell you're doing. It's a much different thing to ask for help than to ask somebody else to do your work. I have my stern face because this is Europe, and I know how shit works here. And to that end, engineering is hard because coding is expensive. If anyone in this room can sit down and just whip out some code and doesn't feel like that's shortening their lives and damaging their bodies and driving them a little insane, I want to know how you do it, because I have no idea how to do that. Coding is incredibly expensive. It costs us our time. It takes us from our families. It makes us inhuman. This is why I can stand up here and tell you that if you want me to build your shit for you, I'm going to rip you off, because I don't do that work. Because I'd rather die. Because coding is expensive and it's going to kill me anyway. I believe in art through adversity. Ask anybody who's worked with me. I'm a real pain in the ass, because when it comes to making art, I love suffering. Because if I'm not suffering, I'm not doing it right. And I believe that only because I have yet to see art that has been produced by anything other than suffering. Even Rembrandt suffered. Go to his house, you'll see. It's here. We keep it in nice condition because we love that guy. There will be sacrifice. If you think you're going to make anything worthwhile and have everything that you have now at the end of it, you will not. There was a saying at Apple that somebody supposedly said. I don't know, I've just heard it third or fourth hand. But supposedly when they were building the iPhone, at one point, one manager said, "We will buy you a new family." I've lost my family and didn't have anyone to buy me another one. You will kill babies, hopefully not literally. But I mean the things that you love, the things that you love the most, the things that you think you'll never betray, you will betray. In that final fit and act of desperation. I can give you a couple of examples of this from my own recent project. I mean, we had some guys who came in who we owe everything to. They turned our project around, and we would not have shipped without them. And while they were there, they produced 20 beautiful illustrated pages of science that users didn't understand. So I had to take it out back and shoot it. I'm an American, I use these kind of metaphors. And like, those people will never speak to me again, right? And I don't blame them. I killed their baby. And later I had to kill my own. Like, when the game first shipped, it was like, there are just lemurs everywhere. And now there's like hardly any lemurs, because lemurs are confusing people. I hear a 1.0 player out there snickering loud here. And you're going to lose friends. I mean, that's the thing. You're just going to lose friends, because either you're going to work with them, in which case they're going to see you for the horrible bastard that you really are, and vice versa. Or you're not going to work with them, and you're just not going to have the effort to maintain your relationship with them. Because I mean, and I mean friends, right? I don't mean friends like on, Facebook. I mean actual friends that you actually put some effort into maintaining your relationship with. You should ask your friends to do you favors sometimes, by the way, hard favors, just to see if they're really your friends or not. Right? Like, a lot of people will say that they'll help you move, but how many people will really help you move a body? I mean, very few. But seriously, there was a great example of this online, where someone said, if you imagine that there was a piece of evidence, like a picture of you that's really incriminating and destroy your career, right? Like something like bestiality or something really nasty, right? Who could you trust with that picture? Those are your friends. Not many people, is it? Yeah. So it sucks when you lose them. And you're going to be disappointed, you guys. Like, you're going to be disappointed in yourself, most of all. You're going to be disappointed in the product that ships, because that scope narrowing, right? It's never going to be what it could be. It's never going to be what you imagined it to be. And it's never going to be how you imagined it to be. It's always going to be something else that's going to make you sad until you see how much people love it. And even then sometimes. And you're going to need help. I mean, I think that's the hardest thing about this, and this is the thing that I've learned the most over the course of the past year, is that most success is luck. Most failure is inevitable. And you're going to need help. You're going to need help from lots of different people who do lots of different things. Some of these things you don't like or understand, like that marketing stuff I talked about. And isolating yourself and thinking that you're going to go away and create something wonderful and then come back and show everyone and they're going to be suitably impressed, that's not going to work. This is why openness is important. Not because it's morally right, not because it pisses off the government, although that helps, but because it makes us better. If I believe something to be true, and I believe everything I believe true, obviously, we all do, and I tell it to you, then you're going to tell me if you think that I'm wrong, and you might have a better idea. I mean, I learned to tie my shoes a week ago. I've been doing it wrong this whole time. This is why coming to a conference like GOTO is so incredibly important. And this is why for those of you who live here or are able to get to Amsterdam, which I assume is all of you, you're very lucky to be here. I mean, Amsterdam has been, these past 3 years, the fastest growing tech community in the world. We've had, world-class tech conferences coming here, like the GOTO conference. And we have organizations here like Amsterdam, which enable you to basically recreate this conference experience all the time. Like a conference like this is fantastic because you get to meet people, you get to exchange ideas, you're not transferring information over the network, so the government's not necessarily listening. I mean, conferences are great. And, you get together and get some drinks, you get to go to lectures, you get to, learn to do new stuff, you get to meet people. That's what Amsterdam is all about. I love conferences. I speak at conferences all over the world, and I want that all the time. Like tonight, you could catch the 17 tram from Central Station and go to Café Box on Ten Kakkenstraat, and you could have some drinks with some people, just like at a conference, and we do that every Wednesday. Every Wednesday at lunchtime, we have a lecture, so you can come and learn something new, or you can give a lecture, start doing what I do, and get speaker training, and actually be good at talking to other people, not just on stage, but in real life. Like, if you know me in high school, I was so shy. I'm still so shy. But you wouldn't believe it because of speaker training and workshops and everything else. You need help. Help is there. You're lucky to be in Amsterdam. GOTO conference rocks. Now let's talk about chemistry. This is what I've been working on. That's my talk. But I reference this all the time, so I save it to the end just so I can tell you a little bit about it and how it all applies. Lemur's Chemistry is a game about science. It's a game, but it's based on science. Because when you play a game, you're just learning rules, but the rules are arbitrary, so they don't mean anything. With Lemur's Chemistry, the rules are actual science, so when you play the game, you learn actual science. But it doesn't feel like you're learning science, it feels like you're playing a game. When we first made the game, it was really simple. Really, really simple. And it had all these lemur faces, which are adorable, but confusing. And we put forth extraordinary effort. We raised funding, we did everything to make this game, and we released it, and just like, nobody cared. Nobody noticed, nobody covered it, and what's worse is that the day after we released the game, there was that horrible school shooting in Connecticut, and it was like, not even I cared. It was like a massive perspective shift. And so we ended up having to go back to the drawing board and basically spend as much time remaking the game as we spent making the game, just calling forth everyone who I hadn't talked to the first time around. Awesome dudes like Matt Gell, the folks at Black Pixel, I mean, just all the people that have the privilege of knowing and have them throw in on how the game can be better. And now you look at it, and I mean, from a screenshot, it's not much, but it's like you've got, instead of lemurs, you have something that actually looks kind of like science. Instead of this pause button, you actually have levels. It's actually paced. You have a fire button, so you have some control over things. There's a hell of a lot more going on. You have pacing. All of these little things, and the funny thing is, over the course of the year, not just the past several months, but the course of the year, everything that's in the game now we've tried, and it didn't work. And then at the end, somehow it was like no one thing was the thing that made the game fun. All of those things combined together in just the right way, all of those people throwing in, all of those ideas on how to do something, to the point where the credits of this game, there's like 16 people and then just lists and lists of people. That's what it took to make something just fun. It's still not successful, it's just fun. It takes people, it takes energy, it takes effort. It takes screenshots, lots of screenshots. That's my game, that's what I do. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about this over the course of the next year because we're planning on doing a ton of like open source and tutorial and every kind of educational thing using this game. And yeah, we've yet to make the €1 million on it, but I That's what we do. I'll teach, I'll make money, I'll do what I have to do, and then when I have time, I'll make this game and I'll make this game better. And I'll teach people how to make their stuff better at the same time, because that's what we do. We fail, but we fail forward, we always keep working, and we help each other out.